Hello. I think my mic is working. Hi, friends. It is me, CM Cavi. Welcome to November's Creator Livestream. Hopefully the sound is okay. There's no background music this time, so hopefully it doesn't get too boring. Anyways, I'm here today to welcome back Aaron, our Creator Programs Manager, and John, our MapleStory World Software Engineer. And what are they here to do today? Aaron is here today with a very special creator guest who he'll talk to about their experience creating in MapleStory Worlds. And John is here today to answer creator questions about the MapleStory Worlds maker. And yeah. And what's next? Oh, announcements are next. Okay. Okay, so we're super curious over here on the MapleStory Worlds team, and we would really like to know, as a creator, how you find content on how to create your own world. So yeah, please take a moment to fill out the super short survey. I promise it's very short. Give me a second. Let me drop that link. Yeah, so take a moment to fill out our super short survey. It was the same survey from last time, our last creator live stream last month. So if you've answered it, no need to answer again. What else? Yeah, so this survey will just help you with creating your worlds using MapleStory Worlds by creating more targeted videos and documentations and GitHub packages and stuff like that. Okay. That was a lot. So please take the time to fill out our survey, and I will mention it again at the end. And now we're going to move on to the next part of our live stream, starting with Aaron. Again, our Creator Programs Manager in our special creator guest Ember stream. I am going to go into intermission really quick, and then when I come back, it won't be me anymore. It'll be Aaron and Emberstream. So give us a few seconds. And we're going into intermission right now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Aaron. Glad to be back here with you all, and even more glad to be here with Emberstream, someone who has been a part of the MapleStory Worlds creator community for quite some time now, and here to talk a little bit about what it's been like to be in the MapleStory Worlds creator community. Very happy to have you here today, Emberstream. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, how did you hear about MapleStory Worlds?
So I first heard about MapleStory Worlds actually through Artale. I was browsing on Twitch, and one of the MapleStory streamers that I've watched was playing Artale. The game description came up as MapleStory Worlds, and so I was curious what that was. After digging into it, I found MapleStory Worlds, the creator support on the website, and everything involved.
Nice. Okay. So it was a particular game that led you to, the platform, but you actually decided to be a creator, right? So why did you choose MapleStory Worlds to bring your ideas to life?
So the thing that I love about MapleStory Worlds is that it really supports the types of games that I enjoy making best. I love the way that 2D pixel art looks in games, and I also really enjoy the sort of action platformer style game that MapleStory is. And MapleStory Worlds has amazing support for both of those, and especially having all of the MapleStory assets available to use, because I personally am not an artist. My stick figures barely look like stick figures, but my ability to make things on MapleStory Worlds is so much greater due to the support it has, and especially for the types of games that I love.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, glad to hear that. And glad that you're able to elevate your art style using MapleStory Worlds. Um, so I guess, since you made the decision to become a creator and start making things in MapleStory Worlds, could you tell us a little bit about your journey from that point until today?
Yeah, so thankfully, around the time I started looking into MapleStory Worlds, the first Maple Jam was announced.
Hmm.
And so I watched a bunch of tutorials that I could find on MapleStory Worlds. I read through the documentation that was available and joined a team for the Maple Jam, thinking that working together with people would let me dig into the engine and produce something that I can really kind of iterate on with other people. Uh, what I ended up creating with the group is something similar to Among Us in MapleStory Worlds. Uh, there was a lot of learning gaps, even though I do have a bit of a programming background, just converting over into Lua and understanding how MapleStory Worlds does everything. So I'm very happy that I joined a team so that we could kind of work together and solve problems together while we were doing it. Then after that, I ended up joining the very first Creators Workshop. During the
Nice,
workshop, I
nice.
expanded on my knowledge and I created A Place for Us, which is a creature raising simulation game. My big focus at the time was the learning how to make the core game systems, things such as inventory, quests, cutscenes, things that every game will kind of use and that will give me that great start on understanding the depth of the engine. Um, After the release of A Place for Us, I thought that my skills on MapleStory Worlds had gotten much stronger, but I kind of felt that some of the gameplay on it was slightly lacking, so I continued developing my skills and looking into other, I guess, other game types and other smaller projects to really focus in on getting that fun into the game. Um, then I paused some of that development. I brainstormed something with a smaller scope, something easier to get a first prototype up and running, and then I could really kind of expand on. And that's what led me to the current Creators Workshop, where I'm working on Culinary Clash,
Mm.
a cooking game.
Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun watching your journey throughout, Maple
Thank
Jam,
you.
through the Creators Workshop, and now the current Creators Workshop. Seeing all these different projects that you've been working on. I loved Maple Jam. It was a lot of fun, and it's cool to see that you've been able to keep creating new things since then. Um, I do want to give us all an opportunity to check out a sneak peek of Culinary Clash. I'm really excited about it. So
Me too.
let's show that really quickly, and then we'll come back. Awesome. Okay, cool. So thanks for sharing that clip from Culinary Clash with all of us. Super excited to see the finished final product. Although I have been enjoying working with you on it in the workshop. So you have a lot of experience through these different programs, different projects that you've been a part of. What are some of the things that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started, all the way back then when we first opened?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is there are a lot of assets provided from MapleStory World, but they don't always work in exactly the way that you need them to. For example, some of the sprites might be offset a lot, so where you think you're placing them, they're 300 pixels over to the side. If you run into a situation like that and you need to change what we call the anchor point on the sprite, you can actually do it by creating a one frame animation, and that'll let you customize exactly where the anchor point is. This is especially good when you're using these sprites in the UI, where you often want them positioned in the exact center of the sprite, not off to any side.
Mm.
Another one that is very important is when you're creating custom footholds, if you right click on an entity that has the custom foothold component, you can choose to edit the foothold, and then you can actually click on screen to add the foothold points, which is much easier than trying to manipulate the X and Y coordinates to find exactly where you want to put them.
Nice. Thanks for that tip. I hope all of you that are watching and listening are having an aha moment right now, or maybe you discovered this on your own before. But thank you so much for sharing that. So switching back to the workshop, what was your goal going into the current workshop that you're in now?
So my goal going into the workshop this time was to get a fun, playable game loop together and then to build all the systems around it. The workshop is very intense with it being a 3-month program, and so I wanted as much time as possible to both play the game myself and allow other people to play it and really make sure that I have chances to iterate on it and make it fun. Um, so what I wanted to focus on with this game, Culinary Clash, is that you're cooking, you're a chef, and I wanted the experience of cooking to feel enjoyable. So I really focused on what does it mean to be chopping an ingredient in a game? What does it mean to be frying something? What does it mean to be washing dishes? And how can those activities become fun gameplay that you experience rather than something as simple as waiting for a bar to load up to tell you it's done?
And you make washing dishes and frying things seem so abstract and philosophical, but I'm sure it's something that you really had to consider, right, when designing, the player experience. So thanks for sharing that. So in the workshop, what's been some of your favorite experiences that you've had so far?
My favorite experience so far has been getting to know all of the other creators in the MapleStory Worlds team. Having developers work alongside me, especially as a solo dev, really helps motivate me. Seeing other people work through their problems, posting their solutions, being excited about their game, it fuels me further to continue working on my own development and to share the things that I'm working on, which give you a nice morale boost.
That's awesome. Yeah, we love to see that, collaboration and encouragement, and appreciate your part in that as well. Um, has there been any experiences or lessons from the workshop that surprised you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So during the development of A Place for Us, a live stream was done where CM Cabby actually played through our games. That was the first time I had implemented my tutorial, and while I was watching Cabby play through it, I was clenching and shouting at the screen, "Oh my God, did she break it? No, Cabby, don't go that way, don't go that way, don't get lost on stream in front of everybody." In the end, though, Cabby found everything, the tutorial didn't break at all, and I learned a lot about guiding players through the game and had the enjoyment of watching someone experience my game for the first time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Sam Cabby, for that. And thank you for everything you do for all of our games. So I guess, last question I have for you is, what advice would you give to other creators out there looking to make their first game in MapleStory Worlds?
What I would say for any new creators is to start small and start playable. MapleStory Worlds provides a lot of depth that you can potentially get yourself lost in, but as a general suggestion for game development, you want something that you can play quickly so that you can constantly adjust it and get in front of other people to really experience the moment to moment aspect of the game, because that's what your players are going to be experiencing the most and focusing on the most. I would also say to make the most of the supplied packages. They'll save you weeks of learning and programming something that is already available to you, like a shop or an inventory system. These are things that every game needs, but you can take a lot of time programming your version of the inventory when at the end of the day, your inventory is not what makes your game unique. It's all of the fun and special parts that you put in. So really focus on those unique aspects of your game, and to both be able to play it and to drive yourself further, get something that you can quickly hit play and feel what exactly the game is going to be.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that advice and encouragement to everyone out there. So yes, don't take Emberstream's words for granted. All of you just now starting, and looking forward to seeing all the amazing things you all create as well. So thank you so much, Emberstream, for joining us today. Really appreciate you sharing your experience and some tips as well. And for more tips, now it's time to hear from our MapleStory World software engineer, John. So with that, I will toss it over to you, John. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Emberstream, that was awesome experience. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So today we're gonna get into some creator Q&As. Unfortunately, we did not get any questions coming in from the community. So what we will actually be doing is we'll just kind of answer some questions that I was able to gather from our various programs or from our our Discord community that I've seen. If you have any questions as I talk about any of these topics, please do let me know. So before we get into our prepared list of questions, I actually do see your question. I'm gonna read your name as Zero Damage, but so your question, unfortunately, I lost the exact text here, but it was in regards to the user funds. So are you able to access through our API the user funds of a player in your world? And unfortunately, the answer is no. At the moment, our API does not support the ability to read the user's current world coin balance. So unfortunately, you cannot do that. But I will make sure that I make that as a feature request so that our devs are aware of this. So please also note any feedback or feature requests that you'd like to note inside of our Discord feedback channel. We do monitor that quite often. So if you have any feedback for me or our team, please make sure that you do be as vocal as you can about any issues or bugs or feedback for our platform on our Discord. Okay. No worries, Professional Panda. For the next Q&A, if you do have any questions, please do make sure to submit your questions there so that for you guys that are developing any worlds, you guys can get some of your development questions answered. Okay, so with that said, without further ado, let's move straight into our list of prepared questions. So the first question is, can animation clips be exported or imported from a file? And this was actually a recent update that we recently added in. And you do now have the ability to export animation clips and import animation clips with a little bit of a caveat. So let's go into our MapleStory Worlds Maker here. I'll do my best to keep an eye on chat. So let me know if you have any questions. So in our resource storage and MapleStory Worlds resources, you now have the ability inside of the animation clip section to right click on any animation and export that animation clip. So if you were to export, let's say this animation, we can export this animation clip. We can say mage. I apologize for not actually knowing the name of this monster. Okay, mage, and then we can click save. And we will navigate to the folder that we had saved that animation. So here is that animation. If we double click to open up, we can see that this is a JSON file format. Let's try importing this first as is and see what happens. So if we go into the My Resources tab now, and we are making sure to select the animation, and we can have our monster highlighted. If we click on the JSON button here, so this is the newly added button. If we click on that, we can click Add Animation Clips with JSON. So if we click this, then we can select our robot attack, or sorry, our mage _1, and we can try opening it. When we do so, we get a little bit of an error. So it says, please refer to the following file for more details. If we open up that directory file, let me just quickly navigate to it and open up that file. with me just a moment. So we get this JSON file that was set at that directory. And we can see that we have an error message saying that the RUID must be empty when adding a new animation clip. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the animation that we tried to import, mage_1, and we're going to remove this. Then we're going to hop right back into here, and then we can click Add Animation Clip from JSON. And then if we click on the mage now and import it, we can see that it begins to import, and then it had successfully added in our animation. So this can be useful, especially if you, plan on sharing assets, or if you would like to modify any of our animations. So by the way, you have the ability in any of our animations. Sorry, it's a little bit of a delay. Let me hop back into the lobby and re-enter our world here. Okay, so let's go back into our monsters, and we can see that our animation has been successfully imported. There are cases inside of our MapleStory World's resources. For example, let's go into our animation clip, and we'll actually highlight this fan, and notice that this asset is offset from the center. So what you can do is you can open up the animation clip editor, and you can modify the offsets of this. Let's say 80, 85, let's say 90. Let's go 95, and then maybe negative 35, negative 38. Okay, so in this way, we can modify the pivot of this fan. And then we can save this asset. Let's edited fan, or I'll say custom fan. And you can remove frames from here. You can do whatever you want to do. You can add your own custom frames if you'd like into here. But with that, you can edit and you can save it into your animation, or your animation folder. So I've already done this. So inside of my resources folder, you can see that we have, oh, I guess I deleted it. All right, I'm not going to do that again. But I do have the fan. We saw that in our JSON. But let's say I wanted to export that custom animation that I've created. Then you can click on the export animation clip, and you can share that with your partner, your peer, with the community, your custom animation that you made, and then you can share that. If you have your own, completely custom, not using our MapleStory World's resources, this is another way to share resources that way as well. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. How do I control animations on monster presets? So this is a question that I saw in our community on the Creator Hub channel. And there are a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to modifying monster presets. So let's hop into the scene that I've prepared here. So this is a monster preset that I pulled. If we go into our preset list and we navigate to our monsters panel, you can see a list of a bunch of monster presets, and I've dropped in this monster. So when you're utilizing any of our presets, it's important to keep in mind that that this monster does come pre-packaged with a ton of different components. Most notable of which is the AI Wander components, the hit component. both of which may have or will have an impact on the animations because these by default are controlling the animation states. So what we're going to be taking a look at is both the state animation component as well as the state component. We're going to utilize both to control the animations of our preset monster. If we press play right now, we can see that our monster is just kind of wandering. It by default is playing some animations. If you go up to it, it has the hit animation and it has the death animation. All of that is kind of pre-packaged and set up already with our robot. So we can see that several components are already modifying our animation state. So we have to be aware which components are doing so, and then to either remove those components or modify those components as necessary. So a couple examples are the state component has by default, any state component has by default the idle and dead states. So these are not states that you have to add in manually. These are automatically added as soon as you attach this component. The player component has a ton of states that it modifies and manipulates. It has the move state, the climb state, the ladder state, crouch, jump, fall, attack, wait, and sit. All of these are controlled by the player component. The AI chase and the AI wander component both manipulate the move state, and the hit component manipulates the hit state. So with that in mind, we have to make sure that when we are trying to play certain states, that we don't have any other conflicting states that are, setting these states or conflicting with our code, our custom code that we want to have, modifying our states. So what we're going to do from our side is we're actually going to get rid of a couple components that we know are manipulating this state. So we're going to remove this AI wander component. We're going to remove for now, let's just remove the AI wander component. And if we try to remove this AI wander component, we're going to get a little warning saying that it's already been defined in the model and cannot be removed. So if you want to manipulate the components inside of presets are based on a certain model that you don't actually have access to. So we're going to go up at the top here, and we're going to click on break. What this will do is this will break the link to the model and allow us to manipulate this as if it weren't connected to the base model. So now we can go in and we can update and remove the this AI wander component. So we're also going to remove the hit component because that is manipulating the hit state. We want to add our custom hit state in code. So as I remove these, it's important to keep in mind also that if you want to keep some of these functionalities and behaviors, you're likely are going to want to add your own custom extensions to these components. So if it's the AI wander component, you're likely going to want to build your own behavior tree. For the hit component, you're likely going to want to extend the existing hit component and update those states that way. But for our case, we're simply going to want to play some of our animations. So inside of our preset kind of monster here, we have already removed those components. And we have our state transition script here. So we're going to do a couple things. Let's comment out these for now. On begin play, we're initializing our animations. We're grabbing our state component. We're validating if it exists. We're grabbing our state animation component. We're also validating that it exists. What we're going to do first with the state animation component is we're going to try utilizing this function, state string to animation key. And what I want to highlight here is that if we go into our monster, we can see that we have several states. We have the move, stand, attack, hit, idle, or die, die 2, and die F. All of these are mapped by default by the state animation components to the animation keys. So our state string animation key is already mapped to this animation RUID. So if we try to get the animation key, of the attack, let's press play. And we can see that we have our lowercase attack, and this is the this attack state. So essentially, all of our animation states that we have here, state animation components, the state counterparts are the uppercase versions of those states. Be careful not to have any uppercase values inside of these states. If there is, you might want to change it to lowercase so that they can be properly mapped to a state. So now that we know that this is possible, now we can simply just add certain states. So let's add our hit state. Let's actually not add the condition yet. We'll get into what that does in just a moment. But we have our hit state. Let me stop just a moment. I'll check for any questions from chat. I don't see any yet. So we have our hit state, and we have, and we're going to map that to our default state controller. So we're going to add this hit state, and we're going to utilize our default state controller. So this is a controller that manages what happens as we enter the state. So we have the enter, exit, condition check, and update. So the one function that we did not utilize here is the update function, but all of these have various conditions that we can check for. So something that we can initialize on the enter, we can clean up certain states with the on exit, and then the on condition check is what allows us to check if this condition is active and when we want to transition into the next state. So this is where the add condition hit to idle comes into play, so that so our state controller, state component knows that after we exit the hit state, we have the ability to transition back into the idle state. So we have down here, we have a couple kind of test key inputs. We have alpha 1 mapped to our hit state. Our set state simply just grabs the state component and calls change state onto this target state. So we are passing in this hit, and we're going to call change state on our state component to change the current state to this state that we've added. And the logic for that will be contained within our default state controller. So let's press play at this point, just to check what's going on. If you press 1, we can see that it transitions to the hit state, but it doesn't know what to do next because we haven't defined any transition states. So we're going to also add the condition for it to move from hit to idle. So I'm going to refresh. And we're going to press 1 again. And now we can see that we are playing the hit state, and we are transitioning back into the idle state. In our code, we also have the attack 2, which is a custom state. We're going to get into that in just a moment. We have the attack state. But if we try to press alpha 2 right now, it says state name is not a valid argument. This is because we haven't added the state quite yet. So if we go back and we also add in the attack state along with the conditional, we can now, let's make sure to refresh. We can now transition into the attack state. So we have both the attack and we have our attack state both connected. So it is a little bit of a manual process in terms of how you kind of define your states, the logic contained in your controllers will be very critical to how it behaves and how your logic and your character moves and transitions between your various states. Currently, for my logic, all I have is, so I just grabbed the state animation component. So by default, with the state type, we have access to the parent component, and then we can grab the entity along with any, attached components. For us, we're grabbing the state animation component. We're going to grab the RUID of the current state name by accessing the state string to animation key. So this will give us the animation key from the current state name. And we're going to pass that into our action sheet to get the RUID. Then we're going to pass that into our get animation link. This is a custom script that just goes through it loads in the animation, and then it will loop through all the frames and then get the accumulated delay so that we know the total length of the animation. So here we're just grabbing the delay, and then we're just going to add in a timer that will set our finish playing to true as soon as we finish the duration, as soon as we've waited the duration of our animation. So a very simple script here. We're just allowing the animation to play, and we're exiting afterwards. So nothing else happening beyond that. Okay. Professional Panda, can I somehow sort NPCs on whether they have a certain state already? Trying to find NPCs who can walk. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to sort by states. We do have kind of a sorting by world, but this has been a little bit buggy. We are looking into this. We've received several reports of this issue, so we're trying to improve our sorting and search functions of our presets. So it will improve hopefully in the near future. At the moment, you're a little bit limited on searching, and you're not able to search based on which state certain monsters have. You're going to have to pop it out into the world and check through here. Okay, so in our monster, you'll also notice that I have an attack 2. We also have an explode. So both of these, if we check into our my custom animations, we can see that we have this custom animation clip. This is a custom animation that I've brought from our attack animation. So what I've done is I've grabbed the attack animation. We're going to copy that, go into our resource storage, go back, MapleStory World's resources, paste that into our animations. And that gives us our attack animation for this monster. We can open the animation editor and we can get a list of all the frames of our animation. And what I've done is I've just deleted the initial kind of wind up. And I just went straight into the attack. So this is just the final animation. So I've saved that as an animation, and we can see that there's that animation, and I can add that as my own custom animation. So I've copied this custom RUID and pasted that into our attacked 2 slot here. And we can utilize that as the animation state for this monster. We can also utilize this any sprite that we want. So just for fun, we also attach this explosion. So inside of the explode state, it will play this sprite when we enter this explode state. So let's reactivate some of our states here. Let's also enable the explode state. Let's actually just enable all of the animations. And then we'll refresh here. And here is the original attack animation. There's a little bit of a wind up, and here's the custom one where it goes straight into the attack. So you can customize the animations of the monsters by using this kind of method. You can also play custom animations on your character so that they enter a unique state. If you have maybe a custom kind of sprite that you've developed, or if you want to search through our resources to add that as a state, that's possible as well. So as long as you understand this kind of flow, you add the state, you add the condition between those states so that it knows, and then you make sure that you have the proper conditionals inside of your state controls. You can transition between the various states. You can play various states, and then you just call change state on the state component, and that will allow you to play the states that you've added into your character controller. So this logic down here isn't really necessary. This is just a little bit of a bonus, but to make it a little bit dynamic so we don't have to know the names of the animations of our states, what I've done is we can grab the full action sheet of our state animation component, and we can loop through those the states in our action sheet of our state animation component, and we can add each of those states by uppercasing the states and then adding our default state controller. Of course, this was just a shortcut just so that I don't have to make a bunch of state controllers, but you can, of course, have different state controllers for different animations. So you can have different behaviors, different initializers, depending on which state that you want to transition into or out of. For my case, I just added the same state controller for all of our animations. And then we have the upper, we convert the key to the upper, and we also add the condition where we have the uppercase of our state key, and then we transition from that state back to the idle state, because we know as long as it has a state component, there is an idle state already existing, even if it's not added into the state controllers. So if we have that, we can save here. We can refresh. And then now if we press F, it's going to randomize between different animations, the hit and tag, and it can randomize between all of the states that is already existing on the monster. And if we bring out a preset, let's say any preset in here, drop that in. And then, of course, just to make sure that there isn't any other components interfering with our script, we're going to remove this for now. Got to break the link. We're going to remove our AI components. We're going to remove our hit component. We press play. If we press F, oh, I have to attach my custom script. There. What is the name of my script? State transition. Okay. And we can see that we kind of randomize between the various states that exist on our monsters. This particular monster doesn't have too many, I don't believe. Oh, no, it does. But anyway, I digress on that. But yeah, so the basic logic is to make sure that you do have the state added, and then you add the proper conditionals, and then you add the state controllers for that so that you can control the transitions between the different states that you want to add. Okay, with that, we can move on to the next question. My entity is not destroying, even though I have called entity destroy. So with a lot of our APIs, you'll notice a keyword attached to it. You'll notice either the client tag or a server tag. One of those particular tags has the control tag on it. What this means is that especially when it comes to the destruction of an entity, this destroy function has the control tag associated with it. So it can only be called from the same execution space that it was created in. So the owner of this entity is the space that it was created at. So the creator is the owner, and only the creator can destroy this entity. So it's important to make sure that when you're trying to destroy, you're calling this destroy function, that you make sure that you destroy it from the same execution space that it was created in. So, for example, if the entity was created from the server by this component, or if the entity was created by the client, it must be destroyed from its own execution space. The other execution space cannot access and destroy this component. So if we have an entity that was created from the server, it will of course replicate to all the clients. And if we destroy it from the server, it will also destroy it from the clients. However, we cannot destroy, if we destroy it from the client side, it will not be destroyed from the server. So we cannot destroy it from the client side because it won't let us. So it has to be destroyed from the same execution space. So if we have, let's say, this entity created from the client space. So here, if we've created the entity from the client space, and we try to destroy, if we spawned it from the client space, it of course will not have a copy on the server space unless we specifically call, make sure to instantiate this from the server space. But if we had instantiated if we had spawned our entities in from the client spaces, each respective client will only be destroyed from the client that created it. So because it is not being synchronized from the server down to the clients, only the client that called the destroy function can destroy this entity. So let's hop really quick. So Professional Panda, if I understand correctly, does that mean that if you spawn something, the thing cannot self-destruct? It can. It just has to be, you just have to make sure that when you destroy an entity, that it is destroyed by the owner, which would be the entity that spawned that entity. So if this particular entity was created from the server side, the client cannot attempt to destroy something from the server side. If it was created from the client side, the server cannot destroy an entity on the client side. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, moving on to our next question. So this question was actually brought in from one of our programs. I just wanted to share this for some of you that might be interested in knowing this implementation. But this question was, how do I create a bouncing platform? And how do I add a little animation to that bounce? So here we can see that we have a bed. And then when the player bounces or enters into the range, we bounce on the bed. This particular implementation poses an issue because this bed is on a foothold. So we have a custom foothold attached to this bed, and we want to detect when the player enters into this particular foothold. So there is a way to detect when players enter into a foothold, but it's a little bit convoluted. So we'll enter into our foothold enter check. So let's actually press play right now. And we can see that we have a couple logs. We'll get into what this means. But if we jump on the bed, we have a little animation that plays, and then it bounces on the foothold. So it can detect the foothold that we are landing on. So it can detect this custom foothold. And the way to do that is, so there's a couple ways to approach this problem. One way is to, if we check into our foothold enter event, we can see that we get an event anytime a player enters into a specific foothold. So we are going to listen in on the local player because the rigid body of the player that enters into the foothold is what actually calls this event. So we're going to listen in on the local player, because the local player will be the entity that receives this event. Then in our foothold enter check, we're going to first check if this entity is in fact the local player, just a quick validation. Then we will check if this foothold is a valid foothold by passing in the foothold's ID. So this foothold enter event, if we enter into our type definition, we have access to the entity. So this is the entity that entered into the foothold, not the entity that has the custom foothold component. Then we have access to the foothold itself. So inside of this foothold, we have the ID. So this is the, this is the foothold's ID. We also have access to the owner ID. So this is the entity that owns this foothold. So if it's just a map tile or a map foothold, tile map component foothold, then the owner entity will be the tile map component. If the entity that owns this foothold is a custom foothold component entity, then the entity of the custom foothold, or the entity that has the custom foothold component, will be returned. So this will be the entity ID. So the simplest way might just be to utilize entity service and grab the entity based on the owner's ID. So we don't have to do this validation check. This validation check is to grab the IDs of the exact footholds that are associated. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Associated with the custom foothold component. And we can loop through all of the edges. We'll get into that in just a moment, but we're grabbing all of the footholds and we're doing a validation check to see if this ID exists within the list of footholds associated with our custom foothold component. But if we don't want to do this, we can simply just grab the entity of the owner ID, and that will return us the entity that has the custom foothold component, and we can simply call the bounce animation on that component. But for our case, we're going to check the foothold enter events ID against the listed footholds on onBegin play. So here we're looping through all of our edge lists, and we're grabbing the edge points. So in our foothold, custom foothold components of our bed, we have various edges associated with our custom foothold. So we have these two edges at point 1 and point 2. So we're going to grab those edges, and we're going to grab the center point of each of those edges, and we're going to look for the nearest foothold from the foothold component. So the foothold component has a get nearest foothold by point. We're going to grab the center point of our custom foothold, and we're going to grab that point, and we're going to cache the ID into my footholds, so that when we enter into our custom foothold, we pass in the ID of the foothold when we enter into this foothold, and we do a validation to make sure that it exists in our list before we try to call get entity. And this is just to make sure that we are not calling get entity every single time the player walks over any foothold tile. Okay, and the bounce animation is just a simple bounce check, or just a simple tween, where we have a make tween and we manipulate the scale from 0.6 to 1.0 over 0.5 seconds. And we're using the bounce ease out ease type so that it kind of has that little bounce animation. We're also going to add force to the rigid body, so we kind of shoot the player upwards upon entering into the bed. And that is the completed logic for entering or detecting when an entity enters into a custom foothold component. So if you have certain behaviors that depend on when the player enters into a certain component or a certain entity, and that entity has a custom foothold component, this would be the way. This would be the way to check that. Okay, moving on to the last question that we will cover today. How do I add depth to the rectile entity? So this was another question that came in from our creator programs. And if you're in rectile mode, by default, there isn't really a depth other than the layers. So if you move up and down in the Y, the player will either always be on top or always be below, depending on the layer. But there is a way to manipulate the player's layer by checking the Y position and then making sure that we manipulate the player's layer so that it either goes behind or in front of our target entity. So let's check our logic here. So here we have two examples. One, we have a custom, so we have our tile that we cannot pass through. And then we have two parts of our tree. So as we go behind, we can see that we're behind the tree. And as we go in front, we can see that we are in front of our tree. Our other one, we can freely walk in between our tree. And as soon as we reach a certain Y, we are changing the layer of our player so that it either goes in front and or below. Okay, so how are these working? So our first tree, we have two layers. So if I kind of drag this out here, you can see that we have two halves of our tree. So this first half, this half is on layer 2, and the second half is on layer 1. So we split out these layers so that when the player kind of moves in front of here, that the player will always kind of be on top of the previous layer, and it will be below the layer above. So this is, I guess, an easier node code solution way to do this. We have our materials associated here with these sprites. So inside of our sprites, we have our, we have two sprites. We have a cutout bottom and cutout top. And this is just the cutout alpha mask that we are either clipping the bottom portion or the top portion of it. So we're just kind of splitting our sprites into two different sprites. And then we are manipulating it this way. So this will save you from having to do any custom coding or layer manipulation. The second one has an auto layering component attached to it, where we are simply checking for whether or not the player is above a certain Y position. So we have the pivot position of this tree modified by a certain offset so that we kind of make sure that the Y position that we want to check for is at the very base. So this particular tree, the pivot position is kind of at the center. So I want to make sure that we offset by -1 so that the Y position that we check for before we change layers is down kind of at the root of the tree. So as soon as we enter into or above a certain layer, we're going to enter the target layer. Otherwise, if we're below, we're going to enter back into the base layer. So by default, this is layer 1 and layer 2. Layer 1 and layer 2. And the player is going to swap between these two layers as it moves above and below our tree. And that's it for the list of questions that we have prepared for today. Hopefully this was helpful in your development and answered some questions. But if you do have any other questions in the future, please do make sure that you fill out the Q&A form so that we can get your questions answered. And with that, I will pass the mic back to CM Cabby.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, John. It is me, Sam Cabby. I'm here again. And we have just some housekeeping as per usual. What are we doing? Our next live stream will be on Wednesday, November 26th at 1:30 p.m. PT, which is Los Angeles time. And for this live stream, I believe we'll be playing a world currently in alpha called Nextale. And here's a little blurb about Nextale from the creator. Experience the classic pre-Big Bang MapleStory, now enhanced with modern quality of life updates for all players. Sounds exciting. And again, I think I mentioned this at the beginning. We're really curious here on the MapleStory World team and would like to know, as a creator, how you find content on how to create your world. And I'm going to drop just a little link. This time it'll be the correct link. Yeah, so please fill out this really short creator survey. We'd like to know more about how you find content and what content has been helpful to you so we can create more of that kind of content. And yeah, could be videos, documentation, GitHub packages, other stuff. I don't know. Well, but yeah, so just fill out the survey so you can let us know what works best for you. And I think that is it for the MapleStory World live stream. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, John. Thank you, Emberstream. Thank you, Aaron. And I will see you 2 weeks. Goodbye. Here's the outro now.